Hi there, students. To a fault. To a fault. We use this in two ways, and sometimes it's difficult to know which is being used. Either it means extremely, or it means excessively, counterproductively. And the most common phrase with this is, he is generous to a fault. Now, this can either mean he's a very generous person, he's extremely generous, or it can mean he's so generous that he's actually too generous and it's counterproductive. He's so generous that it can hurt him. So he's generous to a fault. Maybe he's just a very generous person, or maybe he gave me the money that he needed for his own lunch to a fault. So one of the problems with this is knowing which of these is being used. Now, normally we use this phrase with some desirable characteristic, some positive characteristic of a person, and then to a fault, either meaning extremely or too much. So, for example, he is trusting to a fault. He's very, very trusting. Or he's so trusting that he ends up trusting people that he shouldn't be trusting. Now, this to a fault is an adverb. So he's, as I said, to a fault. He's generous to a fault, to an extreme degree or to an excessive degree, more than is usual or more than is necessary. Susie is polite to a fault. Sometimes she's so polite that it can be really rather annoying. He is honest to a fault. So either he's very honest, or he's so honest that he told the boss that what the boss was doing was absolute rubbish. Generous to a fault. Okay, so you have a good quality to a fault. You have more than this than is usual, or more than you should have. He was dedicated to a fault and would never go home until the work was finished. So this is displaying some commendable quality to an extent which may well be excess. There are parts of London that are genteel to a fault. They're so genteel, it's not really very very nice. This maybe the Ritz Hotel is genteel to a point, more than is necessary, more than you would expect to find. Extremely. This phrase has been around for about 400 years, so it's actually quite an old phrase. So to a fault, to excess. He is modest to a fault. Okay, so he is extremely modest. He is fearless to a fault, and sometimes runs into dangerous situations that are where he really should retreat. It's almost as if being afraid was a crime. Okay, she is loyal to a fault. Okay, they will always be loyal no matter what happens. He's resilient to a fault because he'll continue to have faith even when he shouldn't give such dedication. Okay, so to a fault, to an excessive degree, extremely, going too far, a good quality to a fault. So this is almost talking about it's a weakness. He has so much of it. It's actually a weakness to an excessive degree. He is precise to a fault. It's 1 minute and 17.44376 seconds to 2. Okay, so to a fault, you're saying that you're emphasizing that they have more of this quality than is necessary or perhaps good for them. Overly, excessively, unduly. People will tell you she is modest to a fault. She goes over the top. But particularly with this phrase, generous to a fault, overmuch, overly, unduly. Out of all proportion. So Jefferson was generous to a fault. He's precise to a fault. He is modest to a fault. She is loyal to a fault. He's meticulous to a fault. Yeah, he's been loyal to a fault. So this is saying too much of a good thing. So to a fault. Formality. He's loyal to a fault. 4.5 informality. Use informally, semi-formal conversation, semi-formal writing. Stop there. So, generous to a fault. To a fault.